I love junk radios. This little radio, pulled it off the shelf. We'll see what I can do with it. It is a RCA, but I don't know what model it is. Most of the model number is gone. What I can read looks like a 4 and the bottom of a B, a D, or it could be a 0. It could be one of the 40s, but I don't know how if I can get this. It doesn't look like a 0. The line curves on the bottom, goes straight up, the vertical line. So anyway, I haven't figured out what this is. Radio Attic. I haven't found a photograph of one exactly like it. The little nippers have a different kind of dial. This one's got a square dial. Got two different kinds of knobs. And it must be a later version because it's got miniature tubes in it. So cabinet's in pretty decent shape. There is a crack along there, but it's not separated. I think that'll be easy to fix. And I'm undetermined whether it was brown and has been painted ivory or if it came from the factory ivory. So a lot of to be determined, but it's a really cute little radio. And I'm going to see what I can do with it. Here's some more of that paint scraped off. If you look at this back edge, it looked like it may have been painted. You see that brown edge and then white, and just got it out of the chassis, or got it out of the cabinet, and it's a 4-tube arrangement. It's got a 12AV6, a 50B5, 12BA6, and a 35W4, which the filament lineup would be about 109 volts, so that would work. The speaker's got a tear in it, but I think I can save that as long as the coil's not rubbing. I can still save it. Wonder what's going on here. The bottom of it says it's RCA. This says Mirrortone. I don't know enough about RCAs. Was that one of their brands, or did they make this for Mirrortone? Maybe I'll find this thing under Mirrortone and get some idea what it is. The electrolytic has been replaced, of course, and there's a couple of paper caps that have been replaced with Mylars. Still some of the older paper caps in here. Doesn't matter, they'll all be replaced. The oscillator coil there under the chassis. This is the antenna coil up here on the back. Dial string is gone, so not a problem. So let me go look this thing up under Mirrortone and see if I can figure out what it is. So it is a Mirrortone, but I'm still uncertain about the model number because in Radio Attic they have a photograph of a 4F7, model 4F7, but it has a different cabinet than this. However, the dial is this dial. It has Mirrortone on it. You go up to a 4B as in Baker 8, and that's the right cabinet, but the dial is different. Same size and all, but it doesn't look like it has Mirrortone printed on it. And I am sure this second letter on here is not an F. If I can get it to focus here. 4, you can see that letter has a bottom to it, a horizontal line. I believe this is a 4B. And companies back in those days were moving from one model to the other and, you know, using old inventory. I think this is actually a 4F cabinet using a 4B chassis, or at least dial. And I am sure now that this was not painted after. I think this was painted at the factory because the label is pasted over that ivory color. If it had been brown and painted by a secondary person, you would see brown underneath that. So this was factory painted in this ivory color. It may have something to do with the difference in the model number. Doesn't matter. Another strange thing, you probably can't see it. The inside of the cabinet has a blue tint to it. Don't know why. I don't see any other blue on the radio as far as what's scratched off. It looks like it goes from ivory to brown. But the dial on this one is very dark. The video doesn't do it justice. It's very dark. The pointer's in good shape. The lens is in good shape. I don't know how clear it will clean up. We'll have to see later on. But I just think it's a cute little radio, and we're going to try to get it going. Well, it took the speaker off so I wouldn't stick my finger in it, and I've treated it. This is nothing new to you radio restorers, but I cut me some little strips out of heavy-duty sheet protector, real thin plastic. You want to point the ends and then slide them down between the voice coil and the magnet. I did it on 3 sides. Before, I treated it with just regular contact cement. Painted it real good with contact cement. That gives it a nice rubbery surface, and this speaker was very brittle, so hopefully it'll save it. This little Mirrortone radio is turning out to be quite interesting. I took it apart, and I did notice it only had 4 tubes in it, but that's about all I noticed. And I went trying to find a schematic. I went to Nostalgia Air, and they had no schematics listed for Mirrortone. As I'd said previously, on the bottom on the label it says that the circuitry is protected by RCA patents, so kind of confusing. So I went to Radio Museum, and they had schematics for it, and the name of the company is John Meck, M-E-C-K. Went back to Nostalgia Air, and they did have the schematics, but they're listed under John Meck. And I don't know a lot about the company. According to something I downloaded from RadioCollectorsWeekly.com, this radio was built in about 1947, and the company was out of business by 1956. But anyway, when I downloaded the schematic, I realized there's no IF transformers in this thing, and So in one of these things I read, it says it's a TRF unit, tuned radio frequency unit. In other words, it doesn't have an IF. And so on the schematic, and evidently they made about 6 versions of this thing with the same cabinet. There's even one battery operated when using 1-volt tubes. There's a 5-tube version that only had one IF transformer. I guess that's all they needed for that. The schematic that I downloaded, I thought at first, I said, well, shoot it. The schematic at the top, let me get this one here, at the top of the page has a 5-tube, typical All-American 5 circuit, and I said, well, that's not the right schematic. And then I come on down at the bottom, and at the bottom there is a schematic here for the 4-tube version, which I kind of blew up because it's hard to read, and blown up it's still hard to read, but there's not a lot about it to read. There's only 4 paper caps in it, I think. 1, 2, maybe only 3 paper caps. And the electrolytic that's in the power supply. So, interesting little radio. It's got to be, tuning-wise, as broad as a barn. But what I did read about the company is they were building a very low-cost radio, really low cost. So I'm kind of anxious to get this thing playing. I'm going to start the recap process here, which should take about 15 minutes. There's nothing in this thing. Somebody's already recapped it. Well, replaced some of the caps, and some shoddy work here. I don't know. Here's a lead coming off of the, I think this is the antenna coil coming through that hole there, and it's just kind of dangling on one of the capacitors. It's nothing securing it. I don't know, but we'll get her going. Well, the Mirrortone is playing. I actually had to rewire the whole thing. Somebody had been in this thing, and there were about 6 incorrect connections. They had used some really cheap old wire. It looked like they'd just rewired the whole thing and made a mess out of it. So what I thought was going to be an easy recap took 2 or 3 hours to redo. And but it's playing, so now I got to go to work on the little plastic cabinet and get it going. So here's the finished product. I didn't video the refinishing of the cabinet. Basically all I did was sand all that old original paint off that I could get off, all the scars and scratches. I primed it with some high build automotive type primer that fills all the bad places. Sanded it again, painted it with a kind of a creamy white color. And as I've said many times before, it's just a cute little radio. Not a very good performer, and selectivity very broad, no IF in it, just a little TRF unit.